Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, your source for travel stories, travel destinations, and travel philosophy.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Ryan.
And we're your hosts.
Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast. Today we are very excited to bring you an interview with Karyna McLaren from Kosan Travel. Karyna has a cool story of traveling, living abroad, and then merging that interest into her interest with entrepreneurship, joining Kosan Travel, and working to create and launch a new type of travel backpack. So we dive deep into that and her background and her story during the interview. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Before we get started, though, a quick announcement on the future of the World Wanderers podcast.
So we have decided to go from weekly episodes to bi-weekly episodes. So instead of getting 4 brand new episodes to your ears in a month, you're only going to get 2. And the reason why we've decided to do this is because we are both really, really, really busy with other projects that we are really excited about. And that's not saying that we're not excited about the World Wanderers. We still love producing the podcast. We still love talking about travel. But we're just finding that's becoming harder and harder for us to keep up with. So instead of doing 4 episodes a month, we'll be doing 2 episodes a month. And on the weeks where we don't have podcast episodes, you can find a brand new blog post about a different destination in the world up on theworldwanderers.com. So if you have any questions about that, you can definitely reach out to us. And otherwise, here's Karyna. We are very excited to be joined on the podcast today by Karyna McLaren from Kosan Travel. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks. I'm very excited to be here.
And where are you joining us from today?
I'm currently in foggy, rainy Toronto.
And are you based out of Toronto full time, or?
I am, yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Do you spend quite a bit of the year traveling from Toronto, or how does that sort of look for you right now?
As often as I can. I'm still working part-time on the side, so that obviously keeps me in Toronto a little bit more than I'd like. But every time I can, I do travel from here, yeah.
Amazing. So we want to dive into, the entrepreneurship side of what you do, but I think a good place to start is to back up a little bit and talk about how you first got into travel.
Yeah, for sure. I was really lucky when I was younger. My parents traveled a lot, and for the most part, they took us with them. So I was lucky enough to travel from a really young age, and it really opened my eyes to like what was out there in the world, and kind of fed my curiosity, and I've kept that with me throughout my whole life. And then I got to an age where I started traveling without them, and it was even better because obviously I got to explore a bit more and do things my own way, which I loved. And I guess the turning point for me was I wanted to go to Australia to study, and I ended up doing my master's there a few years ago. I was there for 2 years, and on my way back, I decided to do my first big backpacking trip. So along with my boyfriend, we went to New Zealand for a month, and then we picked our way through Southeast Asia for a few months before coming home. We had no other plans. We had no jobs or nothing, so it was the perfect opportunity for us to kind of dive right in. And since then, I've been really, really hooked on backpacking, and that's my preferred way of traveling now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I don't know if it sounds like your childhood might have been kind of similar to mine. Like, the first trip that my parents took me outside of the US was Mexico, and we did like a resort type thing. And that's sort of how we traveled until I was an adult. Did you have sort of a similar experience? Yes
and no. My parents have their own business, so they're always working like crazy hours, and that's probably also what kind of spurred me to want to pursue my own business as well. We did do the resort thing. We typically went to like Cuba, Dominican, that kind of thing, but they also really liked the idea of traveling off of resorts. My dad really hates any kind of like organized tours or anything like that. So my first really big trip with them, I was in grade 4, and we went to Europe for 3 to 4 weeks. We rented a car and drove through France, Germany, Spain. We took a ferry over to Morocco for the day, and they gave me my own little like rolling backpack, and that's all I had to carry all of my like toys and my clothing. So I guess that was probably my actual first introduction to backpacking with my parents. But that was pretty cool that they brought us along for that kind of trip, and I still remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah, what an amazing experience to have at such a young age. I feel like, we have some friends who travel with their young kids, and I think that it's a really interesting life experience to have when you're that young, because you get exposed to like other cultures and different ways of living that are so different from the way that you've grown up.
Definitely.
And so after that first backpacking trip, did you just kind of go back, settle down in Canada, and just like have the travel bug from that point on, or how did things evolve from there?
Yeah, for sure. So I ended up coming home, and I had obviously been in school for a while. I'd been traveling for a little bit, and I had to get a job. And so the real world came knocking, and that was a bit of an interesting experience. I ended up getting a job for almost 2 years, working at just a local company here. It was a really great experience, and I learned a lot from the business side of perspectives, which further kind of pushed me to want to do my own thing. I knew working for someone else, that wasn't the route I wanted to take, but obviously had some student loans and stuff that I had to take care of. So I kind of did my time, and now it's kind of evolved to the point where I've walked away from that job, and I'm working on Kosan pretty much full time. I'm still having a little part-time job with my parents on the side. As I said, they have their own business, and I'm helping them with the marketing side of things. There's a little flexibility there, but it allows me to still travel and launch Kosan essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It sounds like you've had sort of like a similar like life path to us a little bit. What did you do your master's in when you were in Australia?
So I went to RMIT. I was living in Melbourne, and I did my master's of fashion and textiles. My background's in commerce, but always had an interest in fashion. So I decided to pursue that. Much to my dad's dismay, he really wanted me to do an MBA. But a master's, and I did it for fun more than a career. So I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, definitely. Can you talk about the experience of like living abroad, but also going to school? You know, it's one of those experiences that I always thought would be interesting, but neither Ryan and I have actually had.
Yeah, it was great. I was really lucky. So I've been with my boyfriend for a while, and he also loves to travel. So him and I actually moved to Australia together. We had never lived together prior to that, so it was definitely a little bit of a big jump. But at the same time, it was nice to have someone I could rely on going there. So I was probably luckier than most in the sense that I didn't go in blind. I didn't go in completely alone. I had someone like kind of like a shoulder to lean on if I needed it. But we went to completely different schools. He actually did his MBA. I didn't. But it was a great experience. I mean, school I find is one of the best ways to make friends, or at least it was. I find it easier than when you're just going to work or something like that. So having that school as a foundation when I was there allowed me to meet a lot of people. And there's so many people from all walks of life all over the world that end up studying in Melbourne, especially at RMIT. So in my class, I had more people from other places than Australia itself. So that was really amazing just to meet so many people from all over the place. And Melbourne itself was an amazing city to live in. I would go back in a heartbeat, except for that it's way too far away from my family. And that's what brought me back home. But if my family moved to Australia, I'd probably follow them because I loved it.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, the time zone itself is just so hard.
Oh, yeah, it was brutal.
You're like constantly doing math in your head to figure out when you can talk, and you can only talk to family and friends in the mornings and nights, and it's definitely challenging.
Definitely. But I don't regret doing it. I mean, I'm glad we got the experience, and it kind of forced both of us out of our comfort zone a little bit. So I think that was necessary, and it was great.
So how long were you guys over there for?
Almost 2 years.
Okay, awesome. And were you, so you've mentioned that, you know, you kind of had always thought that you wanted to work for yourself and not somebody else. Had you started thinking about like what that might look like at this point?
Yes and no. So I always wanted to work for myself. That was always been the plan, always been the dream. I always knew that I wanted it to be kind of fashion related. The travel side of things didn't come in till later. But I had always kind of, even with work and stuff like that, I had always kind of pursued startup opportunities. I worked for a ton of different people who were just like one person businesses. So I got to kind of see how that worked. And at one point, actually, when I was still doing my undergrad, I had to do a placement. And I moved to Vancouver for the summer to work with two guys out in Vancouver, Alex and Joel. They had a men's underwear company, and I interned with them for a summer. So I stayed in contact with them, like we were always on friendly terms or whatever, even when I went to Australia afterwards. And when I was coming back, Alex approached me saying that he had this idea for a travel company that a travel and fashion company, and kind of doing for travel wear what Lululemon did for yoga or something along those lines. And I kind of jumped on the idea and said, yes, I would love to be involved. And I have been working with him since to create Kosan.
That's amazing. And so can you tell, us and listeners a little bit about what Kosan is?
Yeah, definitely. So Kosan is a travel clothing and accessories company. So we obviously create travel gear. But the idea is to go beyond that. It's the idea that we believe that travel is a super powerful platform that can be harnessed to promote, human connection and communication and understanding and acceptance. Something that I think we all need a little bit more of in the world. So yes, our means to an end, our way of doing that is through clothing and accessories. But the messaging there is that we want to inspire other people to travel and help them prepare for their journeys and explore different cultures while we do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And where did you guys kind of come up with what you guys would sell? How did you choose what's the first product we're going to offer? Because I feel like there's so much stuff that can sort of encompass that.
It was definitely a challenge. I mean, we want to offer everything that a traveler would need. And then we kind of started narrowing it down and saying, okay, well, what's the one thing every traveler travels with, at least, or a backpacker travels with? And we started saying, okay, it's a bag. And then what would you put in the bag? So that's kind of where the thought process went. And we ended up launching just before Christmas with our first product, which was the Kosan Travel Pack System. It's currently our only product that's available. But the idea is that slowly we'll continue to release products that you would then fill that bag with.
Cool. And so we were checking it out, obviously, a bit before, but what makes the bag special compared to the normal backpacker backpack?
Definitely. So if you've ever been backpacking or you've ever even seen a backpacker, I'm sure you've seen it. They've got the huge bag on the back, which is weighing them down. And then they've got their little day pack, which they're overlapping in the front, kind of looking like a turtle a bit.
That's pretty much how I look constantly.
Right? So, and that's what I was doing too. But it was always a pain, and the shoulder straps were always slipping off. I always had to set one bag down to get the other one. It was uncomfortable. And it just really didn't seem that practical. So we started looking at ways to make that backpacking experience more comfortable and also safer. So what makes our bag different is that you still have the large carry-all pack in the back, but our day pack actually has two little really sturdy clips that clip onto the harness of the carry-all pack, meaning it distributes the weight perfectly. You can carry it for miles at a time while you're walking, and it shouldn't hurt your back or anything. I've tested it out myself many, many times. And it also gives you access to all of your valuables, your phone, your passport easily without actually having to put your bags down at any point.
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like that's so key. I find that it's actually nice when my front bag is on my front, then I can easily access things, but I hate the whole I got to take one bag off to access something else, and then my stuff's down, and then most places it's totally fine, but you definitely have to be aware, especially if you're putting your bag with your money and your valuables down, that somebody doesn't just grab it and run away with it, and then you're stuck with this 40-pound bag that you've got to either leave behind or run after with.
Exactly. And I kind of feel the other thing was that backpackers tend to look like backpackers, which isn't a bad thing, but we almost wanted to create something that was a bit more streamlined, had cleaner lines, and that allowed you to blend in a little bit more, making maybe a little bit less of a target when it comes to theft and stuff like that. So our bags are really sleek. They don't have a whole lot of stuff on the outside. The whole idea is to draw attention away from you. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I can imagine that, people looking from the outside, they're like, wow, this is so neat. This sounds awesome. But, behind the scenes, there's probably so much that went into this. Can you talk about the process of, designing this concept, finding the fabrics, finding somebody to actually manufacture it, all the stuff that happens before you even launch it to the public?
Definitely. So it's been a huge learning curve and also a huge challenge, but intensely rewarding as well. So Alex, my partner, is actually based in Vancouver. So that itself has been, a work in progress, trying to keep up the communication and working with a remote team. So obviously we're a travel company. This is the kind of culture we want to foster in our company. So we're kind of working out all the kinks ourselves first, but it's definitely been interesting to see how people can work on different time zones and across the country, if not the world. In terms of the design process, there was a lot of late nights. I was still working full time when we first launched it. So mornings before work, nights after work, weekends. Basically, I had no free time because all my time went into this. But it was definitely worth it at the end of the day. And I definitely think if someone wants to do something, if they've got something that they want to pursue, then that short-term sacrifice is definitely worth it to kind of get your side hustle to the next level, I guess I would say. In terms of, I think you mentioned fabrics, working with factories and stuff like that. We were lucky enough that we had a friend of ours who was really well connected with different factories, and we narrowed it down and chose a factory in Vietnam. We knew that we wanted to work with someone who was specialized with making bags, but also that had a really transparent supply chain so that we would understand exactly where our bag came from. We weren't ever going to just send off our design to a factory in China or somewhere else in Asia, not knowing who was making our bag. So we selected the factory when we went through all the prototyping phases, and then we actually spent 2 months in Vietnam in the fall prior to our launch to work one-on-one with the factory. So we were there every day, meeting the factory workers and getting a better understanding of what they were doing so that we could work with them better in the long run. And that itself was super eye-opening because it meant, we can tell our story of where our bag is made now. And we can say, our factory workers are treated well and they're paid well. And for us, that transparency was super important.
And so I know you guys ran a Kickstarter to sell a lot of the bags, and it did really well.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Stressful, like really stressful, but amazing. I mean, I'd never run a Kickstarter before, but I'd always kind of like followed the platform, always interested in seeing what people were doing on there. We felt that it was our best way to launch because it was a short selling period and really allowed us to gather buzz ahead of time. And it also allows us to kind of sell the bag before we've actually got it. So the way Kickstarter works is people were pre-ordering the bag, and we haven't even delivered them yet. They deliver in April, May right now is I think the timeline. So it was just a really interesting way for us to introduce our bag. So we're actually still taking pre-orders, and then the bag will officially launch and be available on sale as normal channels, I guess, online come the spring.
Was it the type of thing where like every single day you were like checking the Kickstarter campaign page to be like,
and if anyone's in a Kickstarter campaign, don't do that. You're just going to give yourself way more anxiety than you need. But yes, I did do that because I was like, it's like your baby. You worked on this for so long. You just wanted to do well. And you'll have a moment where it goes up and then all of a sudden it stalls out. And those plateaus were like the most painful thing to watch, waiting to see if the numbers will go up, waiting to see if you're going to hit your like internal goals you've set for yourself. But at the end of the day, we're really pleased with how it went. And it was an amazing experience.
Yeah. And I imagine it would be kind of like, it's awesome to see it doing really well, but it'd almost be like stressful as well. Cause then you're like, oh wow, we've got to make a lot more bags than maybe you thought you had to make initially.
Well, it's not even that we had to make more bags. I think, we spent so long preparing to sell them and we sold them and that was great. And, it had its own ups and downs, but it was great. Now it's like, okay, we're done. Now we actually have to deliver them. And I think that's almost even more stressful. You're like, okay, well, people have pledged for this bag. People are now interested. They're committed. And it's like, I just want the bag to like live up to their expectations, to exceed their expectations. So it's almost more nerve wracking now that we're going to be delivering them. But having spent so much time field testing the bag and having sent a few out to kind of, I guess, bag connoisseurs, we've gotten really great feedback. And so we're pretty confident that it'll go well. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious, you said that you did like a bunch of prototypes. Like how many prototypes did you do before you guys came up with like the final model that's going to be going out to customers now?
I think we ended up doing 4 to 5. There was a couple changes that were smaller, which is why I said it's kind of in between those numbers. But beyond just the prototyping, there was also, I don't know how many revisions to, they're called tech packs, to the actual design. So we would revise tech pack and then we'd all review it and then we'd revise it again and then we would do a prototype. So I don't even know how many tech packs ended up going through, but yeah, I think it was 4 to 5 full prototypes.
Wow.
Before we ended up.
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like that's a good, example of how you have to be really patient with like the entrepreneurship life. Like, I think that it's like, I'll draw something up and, find a fabric that I like in a factory and then I'll just produce it. And it's like, no, you've got to, kind of be patient until you've got it exactly perfect for how you want it.
Yeah, I think the one thing I learned, and that speaking to other entrepreneurs in a variety of fields, is it's always going to take 2 to 3 times longer than what you expect it will. Even if you plan for it, it's still going to take longer.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I have a online yoga business as well as, what we do with the World Wonders. And somebody posted in my private group the other day, like, oh, like, why is this so hard? Why is it taking so long? Like, why aren't customers like knocking on my door? And I was like, that's just entrepreneurship for
that.
you. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's this really like idyllic lifestyle, and it's really amazing in so many ways, but it's definitely like much harder than sitting in a cubicle making a consistent paycheck every 2 weeks.
Well, that's it. You lose that stability, obviously, but then you also have a lot more freedom, and the sky's the limit, right? There's no ceiling. There's no kind of ladder you have to climb. It's up to you how far and how big you want to make it.
Yeah, and I'm curious, at what point did you quit your full-time job throughout this process?
Right before we went to Vietnam. So I knew that we would be going to Vietnam. I had booked a one-way ticket, so it was open-ended. My boyfriend was not too happy about that, but you got to do what you got to do. So I knew I'd probably go for 2 to 3 months. So I left at that point.
Awesome. And was there any part of you that was like, oh God, what on earth am I getting myself into?
Oh yeah. But my dad always told me, he's like, the best things in life come on the other side of a, excuse my language, oh shit moment. So I definitely had a massive oh shit moment. And, I don't regret it at all. It was amazing and I'm glad I did it, but it was terrifying at the time.
Yeah. What was it like going over to Vietnam and trying to find a manufacturer? I imagine there's probably it's quite well established now, but I imagine it's still pretty chaotic.
Yes and no. So we had already found our manufacturer before going to Vietnam. We had already gone through several prototypes. They were being sent to Canada every couple of weeks, I guess. So we had already kind of established our relationship with the factory at that point. Going over to Vietnam was incredible. I'd been there before, one of my favorite places though, so nice to go back. But it was definitely different kind of living there for a couple months and also, living outside of the main tourist areas was just crazy. But yeah, there's tons of factories there. You just have to know, I guess, where to look. And the best thing you can do is kind of hit the ground running and try to meet locals and get them to introduce you, because someone always knows someone. Like even our factory manager was like, oh, well, if you need to make dresses or you need to make this, like I'll introduce you to this person and this person. So the best thing to do is try to find one person and then branch out from there.
And were you in Ho Chi Minh or where in Vietnam were you?
We were in Ho Chi Minh, yeah. So our factory is located just outside of Cu Chi.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we did a extremely touristic tour to the Cu Chi tunnels.
The tunnels?
Yeah.
It's about half an hour outside of that.
Okay, cool.
This is sad. I've never actually been to the Cu Chi tunnels. I was there for 2 months and I didn't even go. But yeah, I'll just have to go back. That's what I always say.
Yeah, definitely. It's super eye-opening experience, but it's definitely, they've kind of, made it more touristy now.
Of course. It's one of those things you have to do, but you have to accept that it's going to be kind of a tourist trap.
Oh, totally. I think it's one of those things too where they it was like a very real sort of scary thing during the war. And then, they've made it kind of so that people can go and enjoy themselves with it, which is, kind of what tourist things kind of do.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that another one of the things that people sort of look at from the outside is like, okay, great, you've got this product and like you've done really well, like that's amazing. But so much goes into the marketing aspect of it. Like anytime you launch a product or a service, you can't just like put it out there and just hope that people will buy it. Like there always has to be this marketing element of actually getting it out to your audience. What did you guys do to, get people attracted to the Kickstarter and get people actually purchasing the backpack?
Yeah, so it's always a work in progress. I mean, marketing itself is an ever-changing field, right? What we tried to do was, rather than cast the net really wide and see who was going to bite, we tried to really get to know people on more of a personal level within the travel community. So we were reaching out ahead of time, telling people what we were doing, trying to start a conversation through all sorts of different types of mediums, whether it was emailing different bloggers, it was kind of interacting on Instagram or Facebook. But yeah, I was just trying to create that touch point and create kind of a personal connection where there wasn't one before. We probably could have taking that a step further and blown it up even bigger. But between time and budget, we did what we could with what we had.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, from our perspective, it seems like you guys did a really good job with your reach with that. If somebody out there is listening and they're looking to launch a product in the travel industry, do you have any tips for, specific kind of areas of the industry to start looking in order to reach out to these people and create these sort of conversations around something?
Yeah, I think, number one, if you're looking to create a travel product, think about what you would want as a traveler. Like, it seems obvious, but we kind of, within our team, we brainstormed, we sat down, went through all the things that we felt were missing. And then we also took that to our community. So I reached out to everybody I could to get them to fill out surveys and tell us what they would want in that product. And we found that really beneficial because we could then take that information, not only apply it to our design, but also use that when we did our messaging. So we were kind of speaking their language already. So that was a huge plus for us. And in terms of reaching out to people, I mean, you kind of just have to be a little bit shameless and some people might react negatively. Some people might not answer at all, but you're always going to get those few hidden gems who are really excited about what you're doing. So I would just say, take the risk and start talking to people. Don't be afraid to kind of make that cold call and say hi, as long as it's coming from a genuine place. I think if you're trying too hard to sell it, then it'll kind of blow up in your face. But if you're coming from a genuine place, then most people will respond really well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I first heard about what you guys are doing through a travel group that we're both in, and it immediately intrigued me. I think that you guys did a really good job of finding, those travel blogger niches and those travel groups on Facebook and just kind of putting it out there and see, who's interested in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Were you guys surprised by the response that you got from people about the product?
Not surprised. I mean, there was a few things that came back after the fact that we hadn't considered. So we're trying to kind of implement some of those things now. For example, the lining of the bag was originally black. And we got a bunch of people saying, hey, it would be great if it was a different color, a lighter color, so that I can see my equipment or my gear or whatever I'm putting in it. It's not something we ever considered. It's not something I would ever look for in a bag, but it was interesting to hear that. That's just one example of many. But in terms of feedback, people, for the most part, were really excited about it, really curious about it. We got a ton of questions about how it works and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, people kind of loved what we were doing. They loved the messaging. And we're also backing the bag up with a lifetime guarantee. So that in itself was a huge selling point, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of interesting, as, we've started, I guess, backpacking in 2011, and we've done the sort of pregnant turtle type thing.
Yes.
Gigantic backpack on the back, mini one on the front, so many times. And it's kind of interesting. I know in your video, you guys show I don't know where exactly it's taken, but it looks like somewhere in Southeast Asia where everyone's lined up and you can see all the backpackers.
Near the ferry. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that in Bali?
It's in Thailand.
Thailand. Okay. Yeah. And I was like, man, this is just everything I've experienced, everywhere where we've ever been. And it's so interesting that none of these other companies have really thought to create something different. Because when you go, if you're Canadian and you go to MEC, or if you're American and you go to REI, you see sort of the same types of bags. You see, the ones that are more developed for backpacking, the ones that are more for hiking, and you don't really see any options between that and a suitcase.
Definitely. I mean, there are some really, really cool options out there. Not that I want to push people away from my bag, but obviously we're a 2-bag system, and there's a lot of travelers who do like to travel with just one bag. Our bag's probably not as well suited for that. So the Airs of the world, Tortuga, they've got some great 1-bag systems. But yeah, no one was really doing this. And our bag is definitely made for backpackers. So, and that was the whole point. We really wanted to we found a niche and found a problem that we had all experienced ourselves, and we were looking for a solution. And we couldn't find one, which is why we made the bag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things I really like about the bag that you guys have set up is that you can kind of use it a couple different ways. Can you talk about the different ways that you can actually wear the bag?
Yeah, definitely. So both bags are fully convertible. So the carry-all pack, which is the one in the back, can be worn as a backpack, and it's got obviously its straps and everything else. But you can also seal it all away and have it as a duffel. One of the people we were working with, he travels a lot for business, and he wanted a bag, but he loves to backpack. So he wanted a bag that he could use for backpacking, but he could also use for like a weekend trip away. So the duffel side of things was really important to him, and it was difficult to execute, but at the end, it looks really sleek as a duffel as well. So we're really happy with that. And the front bag, the day pack, again, we wanted the flexibility to have it worn different ways. So it can be worn as a backpack or it can be worn as like a messenger.
Okay, cool. And how big are each of the bags?
So the carry-out pack is 35 liters and the day pack is 15 liters. So the whole system is 50 liters altogether. We did receive some feedback that people were looking for bigger bags, but these ones are still carry-on compatible, which was really important to us. So maybe in the future we'll have a bigger version that's not carry-on compatible, but for us we wanted to make sure that people could bring them on the plane without checking it if they wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that saves so many expenses. It's one of the things.
Yes, especially lately. Those fees seem to be going up every time I go somewhere.
Yeah, and especially like even the discount airlines, like we traveled on Air Asia all last year when we were in Asia, and it's super, super affordable, like really grateful to have that airline. But, you know, we both have bags that are too big for carry-on, and, you know, then it's $25 each per flight, and that adds up significantly when you're traveling a lot.
Definitely. And I mean, even some of these budget airlines, like WOW Air flies from Toronto to Europe via Reykjavik a lot. And they used to just have really cheap flights and you pay for your checked luggage. Now you actually have to pay to have a carry-on luggage as well. So, I mean, it's changing. Hopefully it kind of plateaus at one point, but it's tough. It's an unexpected expense that people have to deal with.
Yeah, I guess it was the type of thing where they start charging for check, and then so many people are bringing carry-on bags that there's like...
They might as well take advantage.
Yeah, there's not enough space, and now they need to create that market for that carry-on space as well because so many people.
I'm really hoping they don't do it across the board, though. I hope it's only going to be the budget ones, and that some airlines will still allow the carry-on free.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like the good old days where you could like check your bags for free and you got a meal.
I know, right? Where did those go? I mean, not that the meals were very good, but
I mean, like,
at least you have the option.
Totally, like, no airplane food is ever really like, I've never been like, this is amazing, I'd really like to eat more of this, but at the same time, it's like, you know, there's so many airlines now where you don't even get water for free, so.
Oh, I know, it's crazy.
So you guys have designed and developed the first product. You ran a Kickstarter. That's gone well. You're closing in on delivering that first product. Is the plan to just continue focusing on this for the short-term future, or do you have other products that you guys are working on already and going to follow up quite quickly with?
Yeah, well, obviously the plan is, as I said, we'd love to offer everything, so it'll take some time to do that, but we are already working on our next product. I can fill you guys in. It's a travel dress. So obviously, sorry boys, this is for girls only, but it was something that we felt there wasn't a lot of clothing in especially in the women's side of things that was specifically for travel. Men, you guys have it a little bit easier. You've got more technical clothing that can pass for travel clothing. So we decided to start working on a travel dress that would have tons of hidden like security features and pockets and come in like a very technical fabric. So you could wear it 5 times. It won't smell or wrinkle or anything like that. So we're working on that right now and hoping to launch this summer again on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I love that idea. Like, as you know, somebody who travels quite often and a woman as well, it's really hard to find, like, I guess, technical pieces that are like feminine and cute that aren't like athletic. Like, so for me, like, I travel with a lot of Lululemon stuff, which means like I'm usually in, you know, capris and a tank top, which is what I'm wearing right now.
Yes, exactly. And it's not a problem. I mean, I travel with leggings and a tank top too, but I mean, especially in today's society, like everyone wants to take photos. They want to get that great kind of photo op. And like, we wanted to create a dress that was not only practical and like really functional, but was still kind of like Instagram worthy, as silly as that sounds. So people were like proud to wear it and they felt really like pretty and feminine, and without feeling like they were going to the gym.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I certainly have clothes that are not Lululemon with me, but they're not, like, they don't have any technical aspects. Like, they're just, you know, sundresses that I would buy from American Eagle or Aritzia or whatever. Just kind of basic. And I think that, you know, I've looked for that stuff that's a little bit more technical at, you know, Mech and other places, but I always find it's very, like, I'm going hiking in a dress and I'm like, this isn't really like serving my needs. Like kind of need something that's still, like you said,
Exactly.
like can take photos in and not feel like I'm, going on a trek all the time.
Exactly. We didn't want it to, it just comes back to the whole idea that there is amazing technical performance gear, and there's very beautiful fashion clothing out there, but there's not something that kind of does both, specifically for travel. I mean, we're not all hiking mountains. We're not all in need of like that super high tech stuff. But at the same time, we don't want to smell bad because we want to wear a shirt more than once. So, that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, when you're like at the mercy of somebody else doing your laundry as well, like it's always something I think about when I pack is like, I would never travel with silk or something that's like dry clean only, which is so much of the stuff that's cute nowadays. It's made out of fabrics that are really not, or, it wrinkles really easily when it's packed in your bag, and it's just not good for traveling.
Well, the other thing is, if it is a nice piece of clothing, you're like, okay, I'm going to risk bringing it. Chances are at some point you're going to have to throw it out because it's going to get ruined if you use any like local people to wash it. Like I always found like they put things in the dryer, or if they didn't have a dryer, it was washed with like really harsh soap. And my cheap clothing didn't matter, but sometimes I'd have like a nice piece and it was completely ruined. And I was like, oh, so we kind of want to combat that and create a product that will withstand that while still looking amazing.
Amazing. So do you guys have you guys started looking into like the manufacturer and stuff for the dress?
Currently, we are in the process of sourcing a manufacturer. So we're looking at a couple different places. Colombia is pretty high on our list right now. But we'll probably go through the same process. We'll find our manufacturer, we'll work through all the prototyping. We're working with a local sample maker to do our first prototype just for size and fit. But when it comes down to it, we'll go to wherever we're producing. So if it's Colombia or wherever else, and again, we want to meet the people who are making our clothing. We want to know where it's made. So that will probably remain very similar to the way we did our backpack.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so in terms of the travel side, are you going to be pretty much like based in Toronto as you grow Kosan and then traveling to the places where your manufacturers are?
Yeah, that's the plan. It's pretty easy for me to go to Vancouver if I need to meet up with the team or anything like that. But yeah, the idea is that I would stay in Toronto and just travel from here. It's kind of a hub even just for flights and stuff. It's a little bit less expensive to fly from here, and my whole family's here, so it makes it easy.
Yeah, that's perfect. And so I'm curious if somebody else out there is listening and they're, looking into getting into more like entrepreneurship type stuff or entrepreneurial endeavors, what are some of like the biggest, pieces of advice or tips that you would give them based on what you've learned through your journey? There's quite a few. I mean, I feel like I could write a book about it, and I've only just gotten started. So, I guess, the first one is just be patient with yourself. As I said, it's going to take longer. So just plan for that and don't beat yourself up and don't freak out if it does take a lot longer. And the second one is don't be afraid to kind of take that leap of faith. Like if you really believe in an idea, if you really believe in something, don't listen to the critics. Don't listen to people who doubt that. Like believe in yourself and just go for it. Even if it fails, the lessons you'll learn, and what you'll gain from that are so valuable, and they'll push you forward in the long run. So that's probably the two best things I can say. Yeah, definitely. Those are great tips. And I think, good things for people to always remember. And I think too, like knowing like why you're doing it. Cause I think that, like we've talked about, it's going to get hard at points.
Yes. You definitely need to believe in it. You definitely need to own it. You have to live it. You have to breathe it. If you don't love it, don't pursue it.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like it's not the like easy path in the forest to take.
No, you definitely have to be all in. Otherwise it's not going to go anywhere.
So have you found that, working on a travel product and being able to travel, like going to Vietnam, maybe going to Colombia as well, has that kind of calmed your wanderlust, or do you kind of find yourself also thinking like, oh, it'd be cool if I could do more trips and get out there and see more places?
No, I actually think it's made it so much worse. Every time I come home, I'm like, okay, where am I going to next? Like, it drives my friends and family crazy because I'll be on one trip and I'm like, okay, well, like, where am I going to go after this? And they're like, just calm down. So it's definitely probably made it worse because it keeps feeding my curiosity and my desire to get out there. And I always feel like I have itchy feet if I'm home for too long. So, the last place I traveled, I went to Mexico actually in December, and it's now February, and I haven't been anywhere since. And I'm like, getting very antsy. So, yeah, it's definitely not, I shouldn't say worse, because it's an amazing feeling. But it's definitely driven me to want to travel even more than I ever did before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know, it's like a hard thing to get out of. And I find like, even though we are like living in Mexico City, like we're based here and we're just doing kind of small weekend trips just since we're working a lot right now. But I find even like just being here, it's like, okay, it's been like a month and we haven't gone anywhere. Like I need to go do something.
Yeah, you get restless, right? And that's not a bad thing, but it definitely drives some people crazy around me for sure. And I'm sure it's the same with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely experienced the, why can't you just like stay put for a while? Why do you always need to go see somewhere?
Settle down?
Yeah. I don't know like where it comes from and like, you know, if it's just certain people, because it seems like I definitely have people in my life who are perfectly content taking like one vacation a year.
Definitely. So do I. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they're happy and staying in one place and kind of doing their own thing, but it doesn't appeal to me. So
yeah, for sure. Do you have any trips planned on the horizon?
I'm heading to Vegas this weekend. So that'll be a small weekend trip to go to the Grand Canyon. So I'm really excited for that.
Oh, amazing.
I love to hike, so I needed a little bit of a break from the weather. And then the next one is a friend of mine's getting married in Jamaica, end of March, I think. So I'll be going there. That's the next bigger one, I guess. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Nothing crazy, but hoping to plan a bigger trip for the summer. Yeah,
for sure. It's nice having those like little things to look forward to.
Yeah. How are you guys liking, I guess, living in Mexico? I love Mexico. I go quite often. So it's fun. I've never been to Mexico City, though.
Yeah, we both love it here. It's I think people would imagine Mexico City being like crazy and chaotic. And it certainly like has that side to it. But there's just a ton of really nice areas, really livable place. There's so many good restaurants. There's parks. You know, the way it's set up is very like European in a lot of ways. So there's squares and yeah, we both really enjoy it. And it's an amazing place to base yourself too, because
for sure,
flights in Mexico are very affordable. You can reach most parts of the country in under, an hour and a half. So it's a great hub for traveling. And yeah, amazing affordable food is like the biggest thing.
Oh, the food is so good in Mexico.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like when we were deciding where to go for sort of this winter, because we don't really like Canadian winter. So I'm sure
don't blame you.
Yeah, I'm sure you can relate to it. It was negative 46 where I'm from like a week ago.
Oh my God. Okay, that's way worse than Toronto.
It's just, it's not that cold right now, but it's just crazy wind chill. But we were talking about how, we loved being in Asia last year, but everywhere we went, we always like sought out Mexican food. And we're like, we should just go to Mexico since we've eaten Mexican cuisine in every single other country we've been to.
That's awesome. And there's so many amazing places to go, and they all have like their own personality too, right? So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we're not sick of tacos yet, so that's good.
Oh, that's good. How can you ever get sick of tacos?
I was thinking it might happen. We've been here for 4 months, so that's a lot of tacos.
Yeah, maybe.
But we'll update you when we leave if we're sick of them.
For sure. We had to leave because we got sick of the tacos.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Karyna. It's been so fun chatting with you.
Oh, no problem. It was amazing. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course. And if people are looking to find out more about Kosan and maybe, get a bag or support the Kickstarter, where can they go to find out more?
They can go to kosantravel.com. And if anyone has any questions even about, starting a business or anything like that, like I always love to connect with like-minded people. So they're more than welcome to email me.
Okay, awesome. We'll put all of that in the show notes and that sort of thing so that people can easily find it.
Perfect.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, bye.
To find more information, relevant links, and photos talked about in this week's episode, check out theworldwanderers.com.
If you have a question, comment, or feedback, send us an email at info@theworldwanderers.com. Join our community on Facebook at The World Wanderers or on Twitter at WorldWanderers1. As always, thanks so much for listening.
Have a great day.
Bye.